What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of From the Logo Podcast. We took a week off, but we back. We got ZZ Huncho himself in the building. What's going on, ZZ?
What's good, y'all? Happy to be back finally. Some more From the Logo content with the Brodies.
Absolutely. We got Gifted in the building as well. What's going on, Gifted?
What's good? Happy to be back. PC weekend was dope. It was fun meeting ZZ. Had some great times and all that. That was lit. Hopefully next year Hayes can pull up and the From the Logo crew can all be there type shit. But it was fun. It was fun. Excited to be back too. We've been gone for a while. We got a lot of basketball to get to.
We only missed a week, right? Did we miss more than 1 week?
It's only no, only a week. But it's like so much happened since the last time. It's like
it has been a lot,
you know. Yeah,
that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the biggest thing that happened since the last time we did an episode was the New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves in the wee hours of the night. I feel like it was like 11 p.m. my time when that trade went down. Karl-Anthony Towns going to the New York Knicks for Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle was the main pieces of that deal. Do you
with
guys
a 13th pick from Detroit, but it's
it's heavily protected, and it's more than likely going to turn into 2 second-round picks. Let's start off with the Knicks side of this thing. How do you guys feel about Karl-Anthony Towns going to the New York Knicks?
Gift, you want to go?
Yes. So first off, y'all know me, man. I was one of the main pushers of the Minnesota propaganda before they had a great season last year. But I was also honest about Cat, right? I think Cat's contract is why this deal happened. Cat is making a supermax deal where in his last year, I think he has a player option for like $61 million annually. It's just a hard contract. So I understand their thought process in unloading Cat's contract. Now you get Julius, who has a $30 million player option, might opt out. If you want to extend him for lesser than that annually, they might be able to do that. We'll see how that works. But to me, I think this was a hard trade to really rank because you're not going to see the benefits of this trade until 4 to 5 years down the line. And ultimately, how many teams have we seen, y'all, where they make the move to get this cap space and wind up doing nothing with it? I'll give you a prime example as a Warriors fan. We traded Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, and the concept was, this $30 million expiring, they're going to use to get a star player who's making similar money, who is in a disgruntled situation.
Which they didn't even want to give up to get Zach LaVine.
Which they didn't even want to No, listen, real talk. Here's the point. They didn't even want to use it to get Zach LaVine, which means the whole concept of trading for Chris Paul, they didn't get value from it because they wound up having a reason to not trade him. So the same thing can be said for the Wolves if they trade for Julius Randle, they don't extend Julius Randle walks away for nothing. Now it's like you didn't turn that into anything meaningful. My whole thing with the Cat stuff is I was not a person that thought that Cat was untouchable. He couldn't be traded. I thought realistically at some point you might have to look at doing it. But I always said, do the ends justify the means? Are you getting meaningful value back for trading Cat? And to me, they haven't done that. I think Julius Randle is a worse player. I think the biggest highlight of this trade really is Dante DiVincenzo, who has a very good deal. I mean, dude, $11 million for one of the best shooters in the league is very good value. That is extremely good value to me. And I think that he'll actually help evolve their lineups, even though Cat's not going to be there. But what they do in terms of this excess of cap space that they still have to reach the cap floor on every single season, we got to see how that pans out. So I think in the short term, they're still going to be good. I think this Minnesota team, a lot of people think with Cat gone, they're not going to make the playoffs. I think I think they're too good to not be a playoff team still. But I do think there's actual questions about how good they'll be in a playoff series. And more importantly, their short-term success. I don't think this Minnesota team is better than the one they were last year. I don't believe that. But they're still good. I think at their best, they can maybe replicate that, but you have to stagger a lot. Did any of y'all think Julius Randle fits well with Gobert?
No.
No.
Like you said, I'm just going to harper off your point, Gifted.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
For me, I looked at this trade, and I was shocked because I was like, what the hell did I just wake up to? And then I think to myself, okay, well, which team gets impacted more? You can lean slightly towards New York just based off of what Cat brings to the table for them. Like I said it all summer long. Like I was waiting on the Knicks to make a decision about their big man situation. They made that decision, right? And you had to also make a decision about Julius Randle, because the amount of times that we sat here and we talked about Julius Randle being the biggest X factor to the Nova Knicks and if they were going to be a success or not, like he was the common denominator. So now you take that away and you replace that with Karl-Anthony Towns. This is a guy that's a walking 50-40 and damn near close to 90s type of center, right? When you look at him for his career. And then you look at Julius Randle. I've always been up in the air about Julius just based off of the fact that I can't argue his talent, but his consistency, his motor, those things are the biggest question marks that always came up. So now he's in a situation where he's on a 1-year deal, 1 year left on his deal with the player option. So it's really up to Minnesota. This is a make or break year for Julius Randle individually. When it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns, like Gifted said, this was a money move. This was a money move that was eventually going to just, if they had continued to just put a Band-Aid on it, it was going to get worse and worse. I said it all throughout the summer. I said I feared that Minnesota was going to get to a point where they had to make a decision with Cat, considering that he was their longest tenured veteran. But they jumped the gun on that and said, look, let's get some money off the books and let's see what we can make shake over here. In terms of the two teams, I think Cat's going to flow a little bit better with New York than Julius will with Minnesota. That's not to say that I think Minnesota is going to fall off a cliff or anything like that. I'm just very interested to see the dynamic work, because a lot of people will say things like when the trade went down, they were like, Julius Randle, his playmaking, I'll take that over Cat. And I was like, what are you really taking? Julius Randle was averaging 5 assists a game last year in like 47 games and like 4 turnovers. So his assist turnover ratio was dog shit. You look at Karl-Anthony Towns, he was a 3 assists per game type of guy and has been like roughly around that 3.4 threshold. And his turnovers are right there with him. Like, so there isn't a clear victor when it comes to playmaking between these guys. With Karl-Anthony Towns, I can make the argument that he evokes more space for your offense than Julius, based off the fact that defenders are going to respect him shooting more than they're going to respect Julius Randle. 31% from 3 last year on damn near 6 attempts. Crazy work. Cat, meanwhile, 42% on damn near the same exact amount of attempts from 3, with the 50% from the field that he was bringing you. And a phenomenal true shooting stretch that he gave us in the playoffs last year, right up until that Maverick series, really. But between the two, like Gifted said, I'm going to take Cat, right, over Julius. I'm interested to see what happens with Minnesota. Don't even really know where to go in terms of coming up with like offensive schemes or whatever. I don't know if Julius is just going to plug right into where Cat was, because he's not as good of a shooter. He's low-key a fake shooter, but it is what it is. So we'll see. I think the Knicks definitely won just a little bit in the bargain of this trade.
Yeah, and then you look at the Knicks too, with even adding Karl-Anthony Towns' contract, the future flexibility that they could have with most of their core still being under the roster. They are over the first tax apron this year and next season, regardless. But then you're looking at in 2026, 27, $41 million below the first tax apron with most of their core, not their whole core, but most of their core. They'll still have Cat under contract, OG Anunoby still under contract, Jalen Brunson still under contract, Mikal Bridges is an unrestricted free agent before then, and so is Mitchell Robinson. Every other main player of their core is still under contract then, with them having $41 million in cap space.
Damn.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's a wild time. Like I think this deal, so okay. I feel like this, right? Julius Randle gets a lot of shit as a player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he deserves a lot of it, but I think some of it is going too far. Mm-hmm. I think that the playmaking, just in the sense of like being more of a bruiser archetype, helps them. I do believe that. But the part about this trade that I'm not hearing anyone talk about is maybe part of this is they know something about Julius's injuries for this season, and they don't feel comfortable projecting that moving forward. Right?
Okay.
It doesn't matter for Minnesota as much because they're not trading for Julius the player. They're trading to get off of the 4 years of Supermax Cat. That's the point of them doing this trade in the first place. So that's why I'm saying from that lens, the basketball fit of Julius don't really matter outside of this season, because I don't think he's going to be here after this season, in my opinion. I could be wrong about that, by the way, but I'm just saying that because to me, their ideal sense is we're going to grow our draft picks, who are very promising draft picks. We're going to grow Anthony Edwards, and we're going to grow Jaden McDaniels, and Naz Reid is going to have another elevated role. My issue is this, though, because this, Hayes, this is something that we don't see enough people do, right? We are talking about the wrong trade. People are so focused on how Randle fit this and that. Let's go back to the Gobert trade. Why did you overpay so many picks for Rudy Gobert if your idea is going to be to, not have the star player in Cat be supplemented with a traditional big? Now that he's gone, what that tells me as well is they're probably not willing to re-sign Gobert to some crazy extension either. And if that's the case, you're now losing Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. And there's a lot of things that is wrong in Gobert's game, but the defense is at a premium. I'm sorry. People that are talking about Julius Randle and Naz Reid lineups, I hate these niggas, because when you're looking at the team, I'm sorry, I just do, right? Because Rudy Gobert's defensive impact on the game is why Minnesota was so good for the entire year. Naz Reid is a great player. I think because he scores well, he has a ball, don't stop, game. Mm-hmm. They love him, but he's not a real five. If you're telling me that you viably want to see Gobert play less minutes for a Naz Reid, Julius Randle front court, they're food in the playoffs. And that's what it's about for them if they're trying to win a title with Ant. So they're throwing away the short term to me to maximize the long term with Ant. The only problem is, how does Ant feel about this?
Okay, let me ask you this, Gifted, because it sounds like you're really down on this for what it means for the Minnesota Timberwolves right now, as far as their place in the Western Conference. So are you saying that you feel, how much worse do you think the Minnesota Timberwolves are now when it comes to their standing in the West versus when they still had Karl-Anthony Towns?
Before this trade, I thought they were a clear shoo-in to be a top 3 seed in the West pretty comfortably. I thought that they had continuity over a lot of these teams. I thought the Anthony Edwards leap is coming. I thought the Jaden McDaniels offensive leap we thought would come last year would come this year, right? I think that you'll see more volume from him. I think with this trade, it drops him from 3 pretty clearly to arguably 4 or 5. Grizzlies have to come down for me now because they're going through so many injuries. We're going to get to that, by the way. But I just think that their short-term success in terms of playoffs, I think this lowers their ceiling. Their floor is kind of similar a little bit to me, but the ceiling of it goes down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, ZZ? How do you feel about the Minnesota Timberwolves and their standing right now in the Western Conference?
I mean, they're going to be all right, but I don't know if, because here's my thing. I've had a hard time believing recently that when it comes to next season, we're going to see that same level of parity in the Western Conference in terms of just teams being up in the seedings by a game or a game and a half type shit. So I'm thinking to myself, which teams are really going to just take off and be, whatever. I don't look at Minnesota now with the acquisition of Julius Randle and think as highly as I did of them last year. Mainly because I said, before, I hope that Julius Randle does not become a player that gets labeled as someone who just walks on the court and fucks shit up. I don't want that to be the label for him. I want him to be able to gel over there. But I'm also having a hard time believing that will click instantly, because I feel like Minnesota is going to, Finch and all of them are going to have to literally try to, in some way, shape, or form, restructure their offense, restructure their offensive schemes to fit Julius Randle. Because I think Julius might be the more go-to isolation player, which we've seen in New York mess up their offense. So we've seen it have good payoff. We've seen him knock down some clutch shots or whatever, but I just hope that they can find some sort of continuity amongst the starting 5. In New York, I think that's going to be easy as hell because of how elite of a shooter Cat is. But they might have struggles on the defensive side of things, but we'll get to that later on. For Minnesota, you got to look at teams like OKC, Dallas, who I think is going to be a top 3 offense in the league next year, literally, not just the Western Conference, in the league. The Nuggets, I mean, you can go on and on. Like the Minnesota isn't in a place where they necessarily got significantly better. Like you could say that there's some holes in their offense that they might be putting Band-Aids on for 82 games. Hopefully not.
I don't know how to feel about this when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves. In one sense, I think that they'll be okay. I don't know. They're definitely not going to. They're not as equipped as they were, I think, to face some of the better teams in the Western Conference. They're still going to win a lot of regular season games.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to predict them. At one point where I did think that they could be a team to go to the Western Conference Finals, I just don't feel the same way about this team anymore. They're still going to be a damn good team and an exciting team, but they really have to hope that Anthony Edwards takes his game to another level next
like a
season.
whole other level than what he's at. Like this can't be like some baby step. This has to be like, okay, Anthony Edwards is not a top 10 player, but he's legitimately he's legitimately in like Shea talks, in my opinion. So I don't know. I think he's gonna probably be in the conversation to be like a top 10 player if he can play at a high level this season. But those are the talks we got to talk about. Like, it has to be realistic to argue he's better than Jason Tatum, even though people don't like Jason Tatum. But you know,
that's a story for another day. That's a story for another day. So, do you see anybody on the Timberwolves as a player benefiting from this team? Like, does Julius Randle help anybody on this team be a better player? Or Dante DiVincenzo, because we focus a lot on Julius Randle.
I think Dante does a lot for this team.
I like
not getting
Dante
talked about enough. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Dante's gonna definitely help like a second unit stay hot or keep them in the game or put them ahead if he's on fire. Like that's the type of player that he is. So like even when he was with the Warriors, I was like, bro, you could just tell in that long season that he had with him and JP in the backcourt, like Dante would pick up the slack if need be. If Jordan Poole is turning the ball over off his ass or something, like Dante would be there to pick up the pieces damn near 30-40% of the time, which was great. So you look at what he did in New York, he was the same way. When guys went down, he stepped up, his minutes went up, and it took him a little bit in the playoffs to get rolling. But when he did, you could just tell he kind of just was damn near inspiring the whole lineup to just be on that level. So he's one of those type of players. He definitely is going to help out. I'm interested to see, like, he might even be helping out like Dillingham, like just doing.
That's a great point.
He's a veteran now. Shit. So. That's the type of player he would be for sure.
I think one of the questions. Go ahead, Gifted.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like the other part that we're not really factoring in as much has to be like the other younger players that they've already drafted last year that could take steps this season because they weren't rotational players for them last year. Can they be this year?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big question. Question.
And they got Joe Ingles.
Washed.
I'm just throwing that out there.
But I think one of the questions here that I don't think enough people are talking about as well is that, and you guys can let me know how you feel about this, is I think an important piece of this as well is how good and how many minutes can you play Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo together?
Mm-hmm.
And how productive can they be in those minutes with those guys on the court?
I like Hayes saying that too, because a lot of people have been saying that based off the trade, you could see more lineups as Conley ages to where you have Ant as like your primary ball handler with Dante as your two guard. And the thing that Dante adds is movement shooting that's not from the big spot, because Cat gave you that, but he's not like consistently running off of screens in the shots. That's going to be Dante doing that way more. So that's like the value in that. But that brings us to the growth in Ant's game. He showed you moments of it, but like, can the playmaking be consistently there every single night at a high level? Because if it is, then you can like say, okay, play Ant at the one. Because then your defensive lineups are going to probably be better too.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that.
Yeah.
It's a great point. I guess we'll see, man. I guess we'll see what comes along of this for the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's going to be interesting to watch. This is the second year in a row that we've had a trade go down literally right before training camp basically goes down. Last year was the Dame trade. I think was like a week before training camp happened that trade went down. So we'll see what this means for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's pivot back to the New York Knicks, though. So it seems like everybody on the panel agrees that the New York Knicks are the team that got better with this trade, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah. I think the thing that we don't talk about enough is like people are saying, oh, Dante. Can we be honest about Dante DiVincenzo and also this Knicks team? Before this trade happened, Josh Hart and Dante were coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
There was a report that said that Dante wasn't going to be happy in his role coming off of the bench. Now, in my opinion, what the realness behind that is he wouldn't have been happy, but he would have done it because of his friends on the team. He wouldn't have been happy, but he would have done it. And we know that, if you're not happy doing something and you don't have success, maybe in a year or two, he's saying, this ain't enough, trade me. I'm better than this. I want my role to be bigger. So, fine. The other aspect of this, though, is, again, speaking to Julius Randle, where they had, a 14 game. I think they went 12-2 when he was healthy after the trades, right? And they played well. My thing is, this was the best roster to see if the Julius Randle experiment could work. I thought they were going to give it one more year, but what makes it hard is, again, he had 2 shoulder surgeries during the offseason, Hayes, and he has a player option. If there's one thing you can know about the Knicks, if you've been paying attention, the Knicks front office, they don't play that shit. If they offer you a contract extension and you say no, they're not testing for it. They're trading you.
They're trading your ass. Yeah.
Real talk. If you go player for player, OB Top, whoever you want to talk about, they tried to get them contract extensions. They denied. They traded them because they understand testing it out leaves you open to lose for nothing. And they're not doing that. They always get some type of return from these things. So to me, that's a big part of why Randle got traded in the first place. And also people keep saying, oh, the cap. I agree with that. But I think the Knicks are perfectly fine with being locked in for these next 2 to 3 years. Because to me, that's what their window is. Brunson is, I think, 29, right?
Yeah, something like that, 28, 29.
Let's see.
Yeah, so like if
you just turned 28.
Okay, so then 29, 30, 31 years old. Once those 3 years pass, Karl-Anthony Towns is going to have one more year left on his deal. Yes, it'll be for a lot of money. But here's the beauty in that, right? With the new CBA and all the contracts that are going up, if Cat is still a productive player in that year and it's New York, and there's another star player who's not satisfied with his overall situation that's also very good, okay, you can trade Cat with some of the younger assets, with more draft picks that maybe come in at the same time during that. I just don't see how it's a loss for New York when, to me, they were already in the same situation anyway, but we questioned their front court. We said, damn, what was the consistent closing five? We didn't know. Yeah. Is Julius Randle going to close every game? We don't know. Oh, shit. Mitchell Robinson, he's out until January. Who's going to play the 5? Cat fits that. So to me, he makes all their lineups make way more sense. Yeah. So that's why I don't hate it for him.
Now, I hope to God that he plays well at the 5, being that he already has history with Tibbs. And me at the time as a Timberwolves fan, because of Derrick Rose, I got to witness that great team. And I remember looking at that team. You got to remember that Minnesota team was at one point the 3rd seed in the Western Conference up until the point where Jimmy got hurt that year. But watching that team, young Cat, young Wiggins, the only question that I had back then was what exactly is our identity? At one point, I thought it was going to be defense and rugged play because of who the head coach was at the time, Tom Thibodeau. But all of the issues that plagued Cat and Andrew Wiggins from the media, from critics, and all of that back then was the common denominator on that was their mental toughness towards the game, was their seriousness towards the game, determination, motor, all of that. And you fast forward, hindsight is 20/20, but you look at Cat and Andrew Wiggins, at one point they found that dog that they were looking for in that 2018-2019 season. At one point, Andrew Wiggins was an all-star starter, started on a championship finals winning team, and Karl-Anthony Towns was starting for a Western Conference finals team and a team that had the number 1 defense in the league for the majority of last season. And Gifted has come on here a lot of times and given a lot of that credit to Rudy Gobert, as he should. But for me, the biggest underrated aspect of that success for them was Cat, because I was like, you could literally tell that he took a step back and said, you know what? We got something good going here. let me add to that and not take away from it. Because you, like I said before with Julius Randle, y'all know how I feel. I done seen Julius Randle. I done seen the Knicks win games and Julius Randle have a bad game. And you would think by the end of the game that he was playing on the other team because of his response to the game itself. If this nigga went out there and went 8 for 23 and the Knicks won, mans would be on the verge of tears and agony. But if he got a 30 ball and the Knicks lose, shit, it's everybody else's fault. Like, that was the attitude that Julius Randle was giving off in New York, which is why a lot of Knicks fans turned against him, because they realized that attitude was not matching up to Jalen Brunson's attitude towards the loss. Like in the playoffs where he shot like shit, and then right after they won, he's putting up a shot because he's got to end on the make. That type of shit. Like,
right.
That's what Knicks fans want. That's what Tom Thibodeau wants, right? So Cat coming to the New York Knicks after a season like the Timberwolves had last year, I got high hopes for
It's the best timing for it. Yeah,
it is the best timing. It is. Tibbs said, all right, I seen you was playing serious over there in Minnesota on the defensive end, and this is our second time doing this. So let's get that energy. That's what he wants.
And I think that's the thing that now people were talking about as well. Like Tibbs, it knows Cat, right? So like if he may feel confident that he can get something out of Cat a little bit more even than what he saw in Minnesota last year.
And he got the biggest chip on his shoulder because they didn't even let his ass know he was getting traded.
Crazy too. When I
he
found
was in the gym shooting. He was in the gym. He was literally in the gym shooting the same day, and they did not let him know he was getting traded. And this is right before media day. Like, at this point, you don't see many trades go down at this time. Normally, it's earlier because you want the team to be complete before training camp, before media day. They did this trade so last minute, and both of them didn't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Tough.
I mean, hey, listen, that's the league that we're in right now.
Real quick before we go on, I do want to say something. The one thing we haven't talked about yet, which I think this is the biggest, like this Hayes to me is the biggest factor of the trade that no one is talking about. The level to where this elevates Josh Hart is so crazy because now Josh Hart is your only non-spacer, quote unquote, even though he can knock down shots. We saw his impact in the playoffs where he might go 2 for 8, but he's getting you 16 rebounds. He's playing very hard defense. He's playing all the minutes. And now you supplement that with you now have Mikal Bridges as your POA, and you have OG on like the bigger wing. So now Josh Hart can be a guard defender, which makes his overall defensive load better to me. But more importantly, the rebounding stuff that he can also add. And then offensively, now it's like, damn, Josh is the only guy we have left to not respect, who can still knock down shots, who can still be like a hustle player. And then also think about Josh Hart and what he can do as a screener in this offense with so much shooting, as a guy who can just actively roll. Like, it just elevates him so good. And I think Josh Hart is a very impactful role player. So putting him in this spot elevates the team tremendously to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, what the Knicks are going to be able to do out on the perimeter is, it could be. I'm not going to say will be because I got to wait and see. I'm in my show me state right now with every team. You got to show me first before I believe it. But it could be on both sides of the ball. Could be really interesting to watch. So we got this question from Anime Lecture Hall. Says, do y'all buy the report that this was in the works all summer?
Honestly, yes.
You do?
I do buy it. Yes.
Okay.
And like, I'll say this. The reason why I do buy it is because we said after the playoffs had ended, Minnesota should like explore what cat trades look like, but realistically, it should probably give it one more year. I believe that the reason why this got done wasn't because of Randle; it was because of they added Dante. Right? Okay. I think the pick was like extra filler to like really convince him, but we all know that pick is probably not going to get there because we know Detroit's probably going to be ass, right? But the fact that you see Dante is added to this role now it's like, okay, even if we move off of Randle's contract salary, we have a good, viable player at a very good contract. So that makes it okay, let's go do this. If Dante's not a part of this, it doesn't happen. I think the Knicks were extremely reluctant to do it because their whole thing the entire offseason was Nova Knicks. So they were trying to get it done without Dante. But I think they realized, okay, the season is about to start and we want Cat, right? Because they've been chasing Cat for years. That's documented, right? Cat's name has been attached to New York for years now. So in their mind, it's like, damn, if we don't get Cat this year, it might be hard for us to do the same thing next year. And we know for a fact we're not trying to pay Julius Randle because Randle said no to the contract extension. And also, they know his health better than we do. So from their mind, it's probably like, we got to trade him. We don't want to do it. That's why we waited so long.
Okay. Yeah.
But what I was gonna say, and I agree with everything Gifted laid out there. I was gonna ask this question, which I don't think a lot of people have talked about because reports came out kind of the day after the Knicks are open to moving Mitchell Robinson. But this is the question I want to ask you guys: if Mitchell Robinson is healthy leading into the playoffs, how does this rotation for the Knicks shake out? Or do you think that Mitchell Robinson, if he is healthy by the trade deadline, do they look to move Mitch to get some other pieces that they need? Which one
at
do you think?
At this point, bro, like here's how I look at the Knicks and their front office. The fact that they saw all of the hype for the Nova Knicks. They saw all of the love being shown from the city because it felt like for the first time in years, the front office said, you know what? Let's actually give our customers a good product. Let's give them something to believe in. And then at the blink of an eye, here comes Cat. Big perk, right? So then you look at everyone else last season, like Gifted was talking about the front court situation. Isaiah Hartenstein. I loved Isaiah Hartenstein in New York last year for what he was doing. And the way in which he counteracted all of the positives about Mitchell Robinson. Because the thing with Mitchell Robinson is when he's healthy and he is that interior presence, he is a beast for them. Where iHeart differentiated was he could play make. He had a little mid-range. He could get to certain spots offensively within his bag that Mitchell Robinson could only dream of. So that's what made them such an interesting tandem. And then when the offseason hit and everybody's looking at iHeart on the chopping block and they're like, okay, it's going to turn into a bidding war. He ends up in Oklahoma City and you're stuck with Mitchell Robinson, who's going through yet another injury. So being that, like Gifted mentioned earlier, the fact that Karl-Anthony Towns is that one mobile piece in between him and Julius Randle that you can plug into that 4 through 5 spot, that's mainly why he's there, to really fulfill that role outside of everything else he's obviously going to bring to the table. So then you look at Mitchell Robinson and you say, okay, what is your role here? If by February or late January, Mitchell Robinson is still in and out of the lineup, or they look at something else on the market and say, you know what, if he's a little bit more durable but can do the same thing as you, because really what do they need? An interior presence and a lob threat. At best, a 7-footer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's really what they're looking for. They already got a 7-footer in Cat. They got, like, who else are they going to go to? Jericho Sims. Like, they're going to have to probably go a little bit deeper into their bench in order to find, like, suitable rotational pieces. But if they can get off of Mitchell Robinson and find somebody that's just durable, like them getting Mikal Bridges, right? A lot of people thought they were going to trade OG after that, or they were going to eventually move up off OG. But when you really thought about it, you were like, oh, they went out and just got Iron Man. Yeah, OG's a beast and can play defense and is a great like two-way player when he's healthy. But Mikal Bridges, we know is going to be there and provides all that.
He plays every game, literally. Literally plays every game.
That's the situation that they find themselves in. And with Mitchell Robinson, it's literally going to be based off of what happens at the end of this month and probably by the new year. How durable is he? How injured, like how serious is the extent of his recent injury? Can it lead to lingering injuries? Like they're in that mode, I feel like, as an organization where they're like, look, we're trying to chop out everything that could be a problem for us. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I
gotta say though, like,
go ahead, Gift.
You gotta give the Knicks credit, bro. Like, I think the thing that I love, Hayes, is them as a front office. They're not with the emotional shit. Every move they've made has been about basketball. What have you done for me lately? How realistic are you as an asset? And we're not letting you walk for nothing. And they saved all the, like, bro, if I told you, right, 3 years ago, all these draft picks that they're saving up and hoarding up will lead to a team that had Mikal, OG, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, and Karl-Anthony Towns, you wouldn't believe me.
Facts.
Right? Like now it makes the OG overpay not look as bad when you look at the team around OG. That's just what it is.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like what the Knicks have done in being aggressive over a stretch of time, like you got to look at it. Like the New York Knicks back at the end of the 2021-22 season, we're a 37-win team and didn't even make the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
And look at what they've done over that time to slowly transform that team over time, being aggressive. Now, we'll see how it ends up working out if they can get to ECF, if they can get to NBA Finals, whatever it is. But, like, you got to admire a front office not resting on their laurels at all and having and seeing a window and saying, we're going to take advantage of this window. I love what Gifted laid out earlier as well to basically say, listen, you got Jalen Brunson under contract until he's technically 31, 32 years old. Cat kind of overlaps with that for the most of that time. That's your window. And they're going into that window and saying, hey, the way that we've set up these contracts, the way that we've set up everything else is that if we don't achieve it in that window, we can start moving off some of these assets. We'll be back to having all of our own first round picks outright at that point in time. They've maximized on the window. Now we got to see how successful they're going to be with those moves that they've made to leave this window open, but you got to commend them. Win or lose, whatever happens over this time, they saw that window, they dived into the window, and they made sure they propped it up to keep it open as much as they can and still have some flexibility. Like I said earlier, you're talking about a team that in the 2026-27 season, with most of their team still, they have $41 million in cap space that they can do another move if they need to at that point in time.
And that's why I'm not going to be like the other people saying, damn, they overpaid Cat. Like he's making so much money. But my point is, if you believe in Jalen Brunson as your best player, this is the best team you're going to ever see built around Jalen Brunson, if we're being honest, right?
Yes.
Because you can argue in moments Cat might look better than him, but Brunson is probably the better player than Cat. But the point is, you have the best assortment of talent around Jalen Brunson. So unless you don't believe he can be the best player, which if that's the case, trade Jalen Brunson and move the fuck on, right? Like, listen, let's be honest. Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, 1 year of Julius Randle, who didn't want to take the contract extension, so he's probably gone, doesn't amount to a great team in 2 or 3 years. Karl-Anthony Towns being confirmed, locked in for that timeline makes sense for them. So to me, it's like, this is really about Jalen Brunson's timeline, and they're building around that. That's what you should do against your best player. Do I think Brunson can be a number one option? Probably not. But this team is so good enough, you can see it. Yeah. It's possible. Yeah. It's possible. Like,
you see the vision.
I don't think Boston can afford to go through the playoffs without Porzingis and still win as many games this year in the Eastern Conference. I don't. I think Boston still has to be at their best. I think they're better than everyone still, but that's assuming everyone's there to play.
Yeah.
Great points. Great points. Now, the same question I presented about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Where now do you rank the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference?
Honestly, probably the same, but maybe they might have flipped with Philly slightly. I don't know. Boston's still at the top. That shit hasn't changed. And then battling for that second and third spot is between Philly and New York. And the reason that I want to give Philly the benefit of the doubt, because for me, I think that Maxey, Joel, and PG could be something interesting depending on how things play out. But Philadelphia 76ers, they got some rotational pieces too. Like, your team as a whole, outside of the obvious big three, like they went ahead and filled the gaps. They were able to still retain Kelly Oubre, right? Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond, not the great names that they once were at their peak, but great role players for this time. And you see the reasons why they're on the team and what their role or like piece of the puzzle is. So for me, it's still a tight race. I might end up saying, whatever, F it, New York, just because I think Philly's going to flame out again. And I actually would put more stock in a New York Knicks playoff run than I would a Philadelphia 76ers one. I'm just being honest. But the lineup still kind of doesn't change. Like, Boston's still at the top. So my question is to y'all is, like, you take this New York Knicks team, you put them in a 7-game series against Boston. I think they give them a run for their money. I think that goes 6 or 7 games. I think if everything plays out according to plan in terms of health and all of that, like that series would feed families. Philadelphia, of course, we could say, injuries and all that, turn them off. But it's Joel Embiid, and it's also Paul George. Like, We talked about it before.
Oh, the Paul George diamond test gonna be bro.
Yes, yeah, like that ass. It's the Paul George
yeah.
diamond test. Like, because for me, I've seen Paul George get hurt en route to a postseason run. I've seen Paul George healthy in the postseason run and shit the bed both times in two different ways. So for me, I started to take my stock out of that and be like, let me take a step back and really evaluate you as a player, good sir, because you're 34 years old, right? You're only getting older. So the best years of PG that we saw from an individual season perspective or standpoint was in 2018 when you were in MVP conversations, but then you shit the bed in the postseason. You did. They tried to blame Russ for it, but Russ was really out there the only one that seemed to give a damn about shooting efficiently or somewhat efficiently. So for me, and that dates back to 2018, y'all. Like that's how far we got to go back. We look at the runs after that. You got Pandemic P. You got him missing the free throws in the play-in. You got like so many moments where he's there, but he's coming up short. So now you're in a situation where, you know, you might either be the second or the third option, depending on how shit plays out. But you better play your role accordingly because they're gonna do you worse than they did Tobias Harris in Philly.
It's a fact.
Because it's Paul George. Like
True.
you Paul George. You wanted this money from Steve Ballmer and them. They rejected you. We gave you a little bit of what you was looking for, but we didn't overpay the nigga. We didn't overpay the nigga before. We went through that. Years of Philadelphia getting bounced out of the playoffs, and then you look at the damn what's it called? Salary list, and you see the highest paid player is Tobias Harris. And that's a problem. So for me, like I said, the Knicks are the one team that I could be like, you know what, I can actually get behind them as a team and be like, you know what, I see that vision a little bit more playing out a little bit more better than I could see Philly. But that's just me.
We'll see. I really like this Knicks team, and I know they're going to have some. It's going to be interesting to see defensively and things like that. Like, but this Knicks team to me is going to be one, especially to coach. But I don't know if this team was coached by any other coach, like how if it would change my feeling on it. But a Tom Thibodeau coach team, this really does fit into a lot. Like Cat, the only thing that you can say is maybe Cat defensively, but then again, Tibbs has had Cat before, so I'm going to give Tibbs the benefit of the doubt that maybe he's confident in that. But this is going to be a really fun Knicks team to watch, and the fact that the Knicks, the Sixers, and Boston are all good again, it's
going to be fun. Yo,
yeah.
This is what I'm saying. You can say the West top to bottom is the better conference, but don't act like the East is just dog. No, the East going to be a fight. And like the best part about this too is like if you go down, right? If we say Knicks, Celtics, Knicks, Celtics, Sixers, what's the fourth team that's close?
The Cavs? You putting the Cavs there?
Yeah.
Okay. So Cavs and Magic. My point is you're gonna see a first round matchup between one of these teams. Is my point. And those are all good, valid teams where if you're out in the first round, things could shift very quickly for the East. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be interesting. The other thing I would like to highlight and point out about this Knicks team as well is it's gonna be fun to watch regardless, because just like we're saying this is a diamond tester on Paul George, this is 100% a diamond tester on Cat.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Undoubtedly on Cat.
And look, this is the ultimate diamond tester because I didn't see
in New York.
In New York. I didn't see too many memes of. I saw a meme of Cat on his ass like sitting on the ground, like arms wrapped around his legs, like in a damn near in a fetal position, crying. And they memed it, and they were like, "This is how bad it could get for Cat in New York if he fuck around in a Knicks jersey and play like ass." Because look, Julius Randle, I remember watching that game where Julius had hit a shot and told the crowd to pipe down because they had just finished booing him the previous two games. Like that's how serious it can get. The only reason why, you know what I'm saying, I rock with Knicks fans because remember I had to transition over, go across the bridge when Rose went there. I was like, how they gonna do my boy Rose? They loved Derrick Rose in New York. They loved him in 2017. They loved him in 2021. Why? Because he's a fucking dog. But you look at Karl-Anthony Towns and Julius Randle, these guys that have had issues with fans really trying to figure them out as players. Like you're talented, but do you got that dog in you? Like, like a player like Carmelo Anthony is a king, is a god in New York, right? And you look at him and even though every year they say, Melo, you gonna play defense this year? I'm getting buckets. Fuck all of it. Like watch this jab step. Like don't ask me no questions about none of that.
You're gonna take this jab.
And they loved it. They loved it. You can build around that if everybody plays their part. Tyson Chandler, when he went to New York after leaving the Dallas Mavericks, defensive player of the year. Just right there. Fell right into the culture and was like, you know what? This is my role. I'm gonna play it. Karl-Anthony Towns is here. Now let me ask y'all this question actually. What is Karl-Anthony Towns' role? Because like Victor just said, this is Jalen Brunson's team, but where does Cat really fit in here?
What is Karl-Anthony Towns' role? Honestly, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but I really think Cat doesn't have to do as much as he did in Minnesota in terms of the scoring. I think you still want to see him average like 19 or 20 a game, but I'm saying there is a difference between averaging 24 and 20 points a game. I think this has to be a defensive tilt. If Cat can just be the best version of himself defensively on this team, and he's a very efficient three-point shooter that can pass well and doesn't do dumbass fouls, he's good. I actually don't think he has to do much to like make this team really maximized.
I mean, the one thing but with how versatile the Knicks are going to be able to be out on the perimeter defensively, really, Karl-Anthony, there's certain matchups, of course, where he's going to have to do more on ball against certain centers because we know that there's centers in this league that absolutely you can't sag off on. But other than that, one thing that Karl-Anthony Towns has done solidly, I won't say that he's an amazing rim protector or shot blocker, but he can block some shots. And so if you get past the New York Knicks on the perimeter, he just has to alter and at least deflect some shots, not necessarily even blocks, but protect that rim long enough for the perimeter defenders to recover. And I think the Knicks will be fine there. And I hate the Knicks. I hate the Knicks as much as I do the Packers. I hate the Knicks. But I gotta admit, it is what it is. Like I don't think to Gift's point, he's not gonna have to be asked to do as much offensively, and maybe the hope is there that he can engage and lock in more on the specific role they're gonna need him to do defensively.
Yeah, 100% on that for sure.
So we'll see what happens along with that one. But ZZ, you mentioned it. We didn't get to talk about this. Derrick Rose officially retired.
Yeah,
he's out of there.
He's gone. They announced the official Derrick Rose weekend in Chicago, January 4th, when we actually take on the Knicks. So there's that. I will be back in Chicago for that, by the way. Y'all see me out there. But with that said, how you guys feeling about the retirement of Derrick Rose? ZZ, I'll go to you first on this one.
Bro, I woke up because I had seen I think it was like the day before or 2 days before, he had posted like a little snippet of him like sitting down on the couch. And I was reading the comments and I was seeing people being like, bro, I thought you were retired, like yada, yada, yada. Then a day or two later, get the announcement at 7 in the morning, bro. My whole day was just ruined. I was on the way to work. Mad as hell. I sat through work, mad as hell, just reminiscing. It got to a point where I was like, you know what? Let me watch some Derrick Rose highlights, calm myself down. Rewatch this 50-point game, one of my favorite games ever. But yeah, it was I kind of knew it was coming, but you know what I ended up saying to myself? Because I was just watching everybody. I was surprised at all the love he was receiving because I was like, I thought Derrick Rose fans were all just kind of in their own niche, but everybody, for the most part, universally loves Derrick Rose. Like he's one of those players all time that universally gets love just because of how ruthless. And I think it was mainly because of how quiet he was a silent killer. Didn't really say too much in his prime. Even in 2017, in the years where 2015 Rose is one of the most underrated versions of him for me ever. Because nobody talks about that Bulls team and that 2015 team and how if the Cavs weren't there, the first team lined up to go to the finals was the Chicago Bulls that year. With Rose, Jimmy Butler, Pau Gasol, Joakim Noah, Nikola Mirotic, Bobby Porter. Like that team was stacked, led by Tibbs. Love that year. Yeah, I think it was just sad. It was sad for me. But I said before, bro, 16 years for Derrick Rose to have had a 16-year career. I was like, shit. That was crazy to me. I was like, you know what? Despite everything that he's went through, he was able to put in 16 years in the league, coming back constantly. Like that's why he's my favorite player all time. Like, bro was just resilient and was gonna stick it out like through the storm. So yeah, I was sad, but I was actually kind of happy when I realized that. I was like, you know what? My favorite players outside of Rose, like, are coming up on that year 15, year 16. Kevin Durant is in year 17, I think. Steph, year 16, year 15. Like, our favorite players are just, we're trending down that path, boys. So it's just like it really hit me. I ain't gonna lie to you. It really hit me once Blake Griffin retired. I was like, damn. I was like, that's 1/3 of Lob City right there. Like, shit.
Yeah. Gifted.
Oh man. Yeah, man. Rose is gone. It felt weird because it's like I thought he would have spent a bit more time in Memphis as like a backup role, but then once Smart came in, it's like, probably not. This might sound heartless, but it's like I don't think I care that much about this, and the reason why is because I like to value players in terms of what they were doing. To me, Rose is a legend, so like him leaving at this current moment doesn't really hurt as much because we're still not seeing Rose at his best, but we remember what Rose was at his best. To me, it's more about paying flowers to who Rose was in general and him having that moment. But I don't think I'm going to be sad not seeing Rose play bench minutes for the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm okay.
Yeah, for me, it's just like it's just the realization. It just reminds you of the what could have been for Derrick Rose. Like what could have been. That's always going to be the thing. Is the biggest what if. He's one of the biggest what ifs in the history of the NBA. And I hate to see people like I've seen conversations, people question like, is he a Hall of Famer? My personal view has always been once T-Mac got into the Hall of Fame, I'm sorry. T-Mac was a great player when he was healthy, but he had no real individual accolades. Like he never made it deep in the playoffs. Like Derrick Rose better goddamn well be a Hall of Famer. I'm burning that bitch down. That's all I got.
I don't even think you got to say T-Mac, bro. I think the way that they have operated. First off, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, so it's like you don't even have to have like a crazy NBA stuff if you've done other things outside of it. And me personally, I think it just looks weird if Derrick Rose wins the MVP and is not in the Hall of Fame. I understand like the All NBA.
Only the person to win MVP not being.
And like I get that. So like I heard the arguments with T-Mac is like more All-Stars, more All NBA caliber seasons. I think those are valid. I think what hurts Rose is his peak was so short because of the injuries. But my thing is, you could argue the same thing about Grant Hill, maybe, and he's in the Hall of Fame, right? So like to me, I just feel like based off what Rose has done for Chicago and for basketball in that sense, and also being, I think the youngest MVP ever. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, no, he's the youngest MVP ever.
Yeah, I think he'll probably make it. Now, it might be some time before he makes it.
Yeah,
but I think he'll wind up making it. I do.
I'm the same way. Like I've obviously from a bias perspective, let my nigga in the Hall of Fame. But right, if I'm taking all bias out of it and I'm looking at it for what it is as a whole, like Hayes said, this is the Basketball Hall of Fame. This is not the NBA Hall of Fame. I have seen players that are in the Hall of Fame and have averaged less than 6 points a game for their NBA career, but they're in the Hall of Fame. So I'm not saying that I'm not saying Hayes gifted. They're not saying that Rose should be a first ballot Hall of Fame or any of that. But like Hayes said, there are a lot of exceptions that if you're going to make an exception for Derrick Rose, you got to keep that same energy for multiple players that are already there. So from a basketball perspective, you can encapsulate everything from high school hoops to college hoops.
Ooh, that's a great point. Because what he did to Simeon.
Yes,
he did some good things.
Rose was one of the best high school players ever. So don't like let's start there and leave it there. Like, what are we talking about? And then you look at like guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had Hall of Fame careers for high school, college, and basketball.
Easily,
arguably the greatest basketball career ever of any human being on planet Earth. Still to this day, he was able to put that together. If Luka Doncic if Luka only played one season in the NBA, he would be a Hall of Fame in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Why? Because of what he did when he was cooking grown men at the age of 16 while still going through puberty, cooking grown men overseas. He would be there. Like Manu Ginobili for what he did for the EuroLeague is probably the biggest reason as to why he's there anyway. Not just for what he did with the San Antonio Spurs, but for what he meant to EuroLeague players, bringing the Eurostep and popularizing it for basketball. Like All of those things play into a Hall of Fame selectee, right?
Yeah, sure.
So for Derrick Rose, he for sure will be a basketball Hall of Famer. NBA, fine. Maybe they need to make their own Hall of Fame. I've actually said that before, just to get people to be able to distinguish the two of them. But for the game that James Naismith created, Derrick Rose is a Hall of Famer in that Hall of Fame, for sure.
That's a fact. That's an absolute fact. And that's what it comes down to. If you guys could think of one word for Derrick Rose's career, what would it be?
One word, you're saying?
One word.
Damn. That's the word.
Okay.
Damn. That's how I always look at it. When I'm looking at them 2011 highlights, them 2015 highlights, even the 2017 highlights when he was with the Knicks, I was like, yo, you saw flashes. Like it sucks when you see, like Gifted said, Rose's prime, not just that it happened, but it happened too quickly. By year 3 is where you're really getting it. And even back then, I remember the discourse around Derrick Rose, like in that 2012, 2013 season, about him coming back. Like the idea was, a player's prime doesn't get there until 27, 28 range.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even seen it yet, right? And then the injuries happen, and it's just like you just keep saying to yourself, damn. I think Rose's career, he walked away averaging 19 a game. So I was
when you look at how like the last 6 years of his career went, that's still crazy.
It is impressive as hell.
Listen, I say this all the time, bro. I saw Derrick Rose average 16, 5, and 5 in a triangle offense in the modern era. Because fucking Phil Jackson or whatever was in New York saying we're gonna still run this damn triangle in modern day. And he averaged 16, 8, like, I remember that. Like
that was post injury, Derrick Rose.
It was that like he found a way to still be somewhat impactful despite the fact that he wasn't the same player.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
And I'll tell you this too.
I give him that.
When we talk about point guard all-time layup packages, Derrick Rose is top.
Layup package is crazy.
I don't give a damn.
Floater package. It's ridiculous.
When he lost, people said, he lost that step. Bro could still float in the air post injuries. He was doing it up until 32, 33 years old. A Rose baseline reverse layup. I mean, chef's kiss. Like, what are we talking about? Like, the floater game has always been there. All 16 years it was there. The mid-range, he had developed that. He was a mid-range assassin even in his MVP years. The only thing that we were waiting on to develop that eventually developed was his three-point shot. His three-point shot developed post those Knicks years. So I'm like, he was able to, the fact that he was able to play 16 years, have an elite layup package for all of those. I didn't see Derrick Rose, some of the craziest layups you'll ever see come from Derrick Rose. I didn't see him hit layups over 2 people. I didn't see him hit layups through people, around people, under people, like just insane. He has a layup package that's up there for me with guys like Kyrie, right? Like Russell Westbrook doesn't have a layup package like Derrick Rose. Still, in his year 16, like it's just wild to me. So wild.
Yeah. Last topic for me, because you guys know I got to cut out here early. Training camp went down. Media day, I should say. Training camp's open today for players, and every time around training camp, this is where you get excited about your team and everything, or you get a kick in the nuts because somebody gets hurt. Jaren Jackson Jr. dealt a hamstring injury today. TBD on what that long-term outlook is going to be. You haven't seen this yet, ZZ? This is the first year hearing about this.
Damn,
it just happened, bro.
Yeah.
What do you do?
And I think Vincent Williams is also going to be out as well to start too. I heard.
Okay.
What's going on with Memphis, man?
Yeah, GG Jackson, a player that could really be big for them off the bench, is going to start the season injured as well. Like, the Memphis Grizzlies are a team that I think last time we've all talked about them, like we could see them being an underdog. Well, not an underdog, but they've kind of been the forgotten team. I think people have forgotten how good the Memphis Grizzlies can be when they are fully healthy. How big of if this ends up being something that lingers into the beginning of the season, how much do you think this hurts the Memphis Grizzlies?
Oh, man, look, bro, I'm gonna be so real with you, man. We were high on Memphis. I'm still like high on what they could be, but we got to be honest. If JJJ, one of the big three, their most important defender for their team, is missing time, they're going to be a worse team. If G.G. Jackson is missing time, they're going to be a worse team. But then if Vincent Williams, the guy that was going to play more minutes if G.G. wasn't there, is also missing time, it might be grits, man. And like, I'm not trying to say that they can't still make a playoff run, but like the pressure that puts on Ja and Bane have to be great and stay healthy as well at the start of the season is tough. Yeah. I don't know what their first games are. I want to look at that real quick just to know, but it's like, man, that's iffy, bro. That's real iffy for them.
Yeah, I'm not. Man, that just sucks. I mean, they had, for a team that had the injury bug like they did last year, this is just not a good way to start. Hamstring injuries, they can seem like nowadays, they can just seem like, oh, it's a hamstring. Like Chris Paul had like 8 of them. Like, nah, that shit if that shit's lingering, can lead to a lot of shit you do not want to have in the long term.
So for Memphis Grizzlies, the first week of the season, they play Utah, Houston, Orlando, Chicago, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee.
Wait a minute, say it one more time.
Utah, Houston, the Magic, Chicago, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee.
That's an interesting slate of games.
Sound like 2 and 3 to me.
Yeah, and the question I have here too, I think we've all kind of high on the fact that Zach Edey, not the player necessarily, but his fit on the Memphis Grizzlies. Without JJJ next to him, I'm not as confident about Zach Edey and what he could bring to this Memphis Grizzlies team. I'm just going to be 100% honest. The reason why I like him for the team is the combo of having him and Jaren Jackson Jr. next to each other. If Jaren Jackson Jr. is not there next to him, it exposes a lot of Zach Edey's possible weaknesses.
Yeah.
Facts. Yeah.
I agree. That's tough. That's tough. Somebody better call 12. That's Josh's thing.
Tough, man. It's gonna be tough. I want to see how this team fights through that early season adversity. I do think when they become fully healthy, they can go on a run, though. It's possible.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with them, man. We'll see what happens. But fellas, I don't know if you guys are staying on. I got to get out of here. I got to go get my daughter from work. So.
Oh yeah, no, we good.
I'm fine to call it here. We'll be back next week.
Yep.
21 days and the season is starting, boys.
Yeah, but preseason this time next week we'll be previewing preseason game.
Oh yeah, that's facts. That's facts.
So
that's facts.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna let y'all know too, chat. Once we start transitioning back into the season and we start wrapping up these episodes, you're not just gonna be seeing our 3 faces on here. Shit. After PC weekend, the connections that I made, bro. We lit like we in
W.
Chill, Mars, bring them all. Adele, Ox, JD, don't matter. Cause shit, half of them owe me because I was whooping JD's ass in 2K all weekend.
So I was busting everybody ass in 2K.
I haven't told the guys this. I know this is mainly just a Chicago thing, but I may have secured an NBA Hall of Famer to come on. Not a Hall of Famer, a 3-time NBA champion in Stacey King, who I actually talked to a lot to come on from.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
You know,
that's big,
Stacey
bro.
King has had some of the greatest calls for Derrick Rose's
ever.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
Yeah, that's so I asked Stacey. He said as long as it's not on a Bulls game night, he's willing to come on. So we'll figure that out. So
that's big, bro.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of From the Logo. We will be back next week with all 3 of our lovely faces. Maybe we may even bring on a guest by that time next week. ZZ, Gift, you guys want to give me your social media before we get up out of here?
Yes. I had to reset my whole computer, by the way. I don't know if I told you this. I literally reinstalled all of Windows 11, deleted all my personal files. So my banner, I have to recreate that from scratch. But we back. So I'm hyped. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube at Gifted Hoops. On Twitter at Gifted Hoops _. More content is coming. I have 16 NBA teams remaining. I have 21 days, so the content is getting out there. So tap in with me.
Yep. Y'all can catch me at ZZ Huncho on TikTok and ZZ _Huncho on Instagram. I cannot wait for this 5v5 and the shootouts to drop from PC. So JD, I know you're working hard, brother. Work harder. Y'all be good.
Definitely. Y'all can follow me at CEO Hayes, man. I thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of From the Logo. We will see you lovely and beautiful people next Tuesday. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Peace. Have a good one, people.